Before we get started, just a quick reminder, Sane Enough is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with a qualified healthcare provider for any health concerns. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, and share Sane Enough across all platforms. Welcome to Sane Enough. I'm Coach Eric. Today we're diving into a topic that's, it's often misunderstood, and it can be a significant hurdle on the path to mental performance, to mental healing, and, let's face it, happiness. I'm talking about forgiveness. If you haven't listened to episode 7 yet, Forgiveness is Hard, that's where we started this conversation. So I recommend you go back and give that a go. We spent a good half hour together discussing the weight of forgiveness and the process of forgiveness, and understanding that forgiveness, while often associated with weakness, is really about strength. And understanding that while forgiveness sounds like you're condoning or approving of whatever bad thing happened, it's not that. And understanding that it's not just a single act, but it is a journey, because it's about you. It's not about the wrongdoer, and it's not about just checking off a box. So we got into that a little deeper. Love for you to give that a listen, because forgiveness is part of the process to progress. And I'm just thankful that you're including me in this part of your journey, because we understand together that it is a journey. It's not a single decision. It's not one step. There's no magic pill. Coach Eric can't snap his fingers and make everything better. If I could, I would. Unfortunately, that's not how the process works. So we're going to do the work. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be cognitive. We're going to accept, and we're going to acknowledge, and we're going to work on processing our emotions, because the anger, the sadness, the confusion, the hurt, they are real, they are valid, and while having those feelings aren't a choice, they're a reaction, they're natural. The process and how you work your way through it, the idea that you acknowledge it, those all are choices. And we're not going to force this issue. I can't make you forgive somebody. I don't want you to forgive somebody that you have to make yourself forgive. I want you to work the process. And when you progress to the point where it is natural to go ahead and forgive that person and take all the weight of that negativity off your shoulders, then it will happen in its time as part of the process, and you will experience the progress there within. So today's episode, we're going to continue on this journey, and we're going to jump in and talk more about self-forgiveness. Why self-forgiveness? Well, it's actually easier most of the time to forgive somebody else than it is to forgive ourselves. And that sounds crazy. Probably shouldn't be using the word crazy, but we're going to, because it sounds wrong. It sounds like I'm just kind of making stuff up to be important. But it's true, because you have to live with yourself. And you've got to live with the voices in your head riding you. The negative Nancy, the blame, the guilt, the shame. You've got to live with those voices sitting there, reminding you of the bad things. Reminding you that even if it wasn't your fault, maybe it's a little your fault. Reminding you that if it was your fault, it's virtually unforgivable. Reminding you and telling you all these horrible things. And sometimes they're not even important things. They're not even relevant things. You've laid down to go to bed and bing! Your brain's like, hey, guess what? Remember in the third grade? No, you don't remember in the third grade. At any other time in your life, you don't remember that. But you're trying to relax, and your brain is saying, hey, let's have a conversation about something stupid, something bad, something negative. Maybe it was something critically important. Maybe you tried to steal your family car and you wrecked it through the garage. These things happen. You need to forgive yourself. But it's hard to do. And your brain is going to do a lot of things that are counterproductive to the process if you view them as counterproductive to the process. And what I mean by that is if you harp on them, if you lock onto them, if you can't process them, and you either just try to bury them, which means those rocks of negativity are still in the bag, they're just at the bottom right now, or you refuse to acknowledge them, and you can keep telling me they're not there, but I can see the backpack, I can see the slumped shoulders, I know you're carrying the weight. You can't ignore it. You can't forget it forever. And in those dark moments when you're trying to relax, your brain is going to remind you. And that's why it's so critical for growth. It's really, really important to learn to forgive yourself, whether it's your fault or an extension of something else, because you need to start taking that weight off your own shoulders. You need to start quieting those voices so that when the negativity pops up, you can say yes, but. You can talk back to those voices and say, yes, but remember. And then you can work through it and get a good night's sleep. Because that's the goal, right? We want to get to a place where we are healthy and we are comfortable. We can sleep, we can rejuvenate, we can relax. We can't create an environment where the stress never happens. We can't create an environment where we never, ever, ever do something wrong. But we can create a process to go ahead and put those things into a productive light, manage them, work through them, and come out stronger on the other side. When we start talking about those voices, shame and guilt start playing significant roadblocks in our ability to reach forgiveness, particularly when it comes to guilt, when it comes to your own personal shame, your own personal blame, and your own personal forgiveness requirements. Remember, guilt is saying that you made a mistake. It says, hey, I made a mistake. I'm not good. I made a mistake. And shame's like, not only did you make that mistake, not only are you not good, you are a mistake. And then blame is sitting there on the sidelines because shame never goes anywhere without blame. Shame loves to tag in blame. And blame's like, yeah, you know what, dude? You made a mistake and it's your fault. It's so your fault. And you are a mistake. And that's your fault too. And you could stop doing dumb things. And you could stop being a jerk. And you could stop being that mistake. Yeah, but you're not going to. And then if you start to process it, blame's like, all right. Don't process too quickly because you've also got to deal with the fact that it's your mom's fault. It's your uncle's fault. It's your friend's fault. It's your spouse's fault. It's your boss's fault. We're going to start throwing up more and more blame to try to give you more and more roadblocks, not because those things are significant or those things are important, but because those voices are there and they can do that and they will do that. That is their job, because their job as part of your fight or flight system is to prepare you for survival. And by worrying about all these other things, you're worrying about things that could theoretically hurt you. Unfortunately, we have developed this so strongly that things that are not critical to our well-being physically, that are not critical to our well-being mentally, start getting really, really focused on, and they start becoming critical in that they are hurting you. Your inability to process them, your inability to acknowledge them, your inability to forgive yourself because of the guilt you're feeling, because of the shame you're feeling, because you blame yourself or you blame others. All that weight starts to wear on you and starts to hurt you. And we talked a lot about that in episode 7, about the physical ramifications of that and the mental ramifications of that. But those voices, they're doing that to you unless you decide, hey, we're going to do this together. We're going to get through this. We're not going to excuse the mistake. We're not going to blame somebody else for the mistake. We're going to say, hey, I need to learn from this mistake. I need to grow from this mistake. Don't get trapped in self-condemnation where you're just killing yourself for screwing up. Flip it around. Reframe it. Look at it as a part of your journey to being better on the other end. When possible, remove the emotion. Turn it into data points. I did X, Y, and Z wrong. I'm going to do A, B, C right. Because this is crucial for your mental well-being. You don't want to carry that weight, because that weight is going to wear you out. It's going to lead to depression. It's going to lead to physical ailment. You have the power to process it if you take the journey. And it will make you happier. It will boost your self-esteem. When you finally acknowledge, I made the mistake, I'm going to learn from it, I'm going to get better. When you start getting better, and I don't mean when you get better, I mean when you start getting better, that first baby step is going to start to lift your spirit. And by the time you complete your journey through that leg of it, and I don't mean the whole journey, because the journey is your lifetime, but when you complete that leg of the journey, you can be able to hold your head up high, get your shoulders back, and go, yeah, you know what? I made a mistake, but I'm better for it. I'm stronger now than I was before I made it. And you have to hold yourself to that high standard. You have to challenge yourself. Because self-judgment is such a huge part of forgiving yourself. Well, wait a minute, Coach Eric. You're telling me to judge myself so I can forgive myself? I'm not telling you to judge yourself. I'm acknowledging that you're going to judge yourself. It's a huge part of who you are. It's a huge part of who I am. We judge ourselves. And so as you're doing that, as you're setting your standards, when you're setting goals, when you're creating your future self-image, you set a standard for where you want to get to. And you're going to judge yourself against that standard. So when you make a mistake, because you're holding yourself to a high standard, those expectations are going to lead you to self-judgment. And self-judgment brings with it the negative along with the positive, because with all of these things, there's two sides to the coin. And if you start insisting on perfectionism, you start insisting on flawless execution, you start insisting that you're never going to be inconsistent, all these sound like topics we've talked about, they should, you start to hurt yourself. So then you've got to bring in another tool. You've got to forgive yourself. And when I say forgive yourself, I really mean forgive yourself. I don't mean making an excuse. You don't learn and grow from a mistake if you turn around and push that mistake onto somebody else, or you come up with a litany of reasons why that mistake wasn't really a mistake. You're wasting your energy and your time on a list of quote-unquote reasons, and they might be legitimate reasons. But those reasons don't really matter in the long run. The mistake happened. You can't undo them no matter how many reasons you have for why it happened. So what you have to do is go back, acknowledge the mistake, and then learn from that mistake. Turn it into a situation where your accountability is about growth, not denial. And that is how that mistake becomes the data points you need for self-improvement. And when you inevitably screw up on creating data points, when you inevitably screw up on taking too long to forgive yourself, when you inevitably make another mistake, even though you'd already made that mistake before and you absolutely never were going to do that again, and here we are, you did it again, you have to be compassionate. You'd forgive your friend way faster for being 10 minutes late then you would forgive yourself for only being 5 minutes early. We had that conversation a couple episodes ago. You have to be compassionate for yourself at least as much as you are compassionate for other people. And let's be honest, you got to live with yourself every day. You should probably be more compassionate with you than you are with me. And I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And I have to process them. And sometimes they put me in a bad mood, and sometimes I take it out on other people. And then I have to forgive myself for that and go to that person and say, whoops, I am so sorry. I was having a bad day. You have to be compassionate. But the problem is you're far more likely to go to that person and say, hey, I was having a bad day. I took it out on you. I am sorry. Than you are to say to yourself before you get there, you know what? You were having a bad day and you took it out on your friend. But that's okay because your friend has had a bad day and taken it out on somebody. They're going to forgive you. So I forgive myself. It's so much easier to then apologize once the weight is off your shoulders just a little bit. Then you go to your friend and you're like, hey, I am really sorry I took that bad day out on you. And they grab the backpack of negativity and just toss it on the ground. Because you've already kind of hitched it up and gotten it ready. Because you already prepped yourself by forgiving yourself to go into a conversation with the confidence to know that forgiveness is on the table. So be compassionate with yourself. Go through self-care activities. It may not be as simple as just saying, like I just did, hey, I forgive myself for being a jerk. Well, I can say that. I'm on a microphone at a table right now. I'm not actually making up for something that I did wrong. So how do I get to a place where I can have that conversation with myself? Well, for everybody, it's unique. It's different. There's similarities. Maybe you're a long shower person. Maybe you're a bubble bath person. Maybe you like to take long walks. Maybe in an urban environment where you can hear all the noise in the background and it just kind of blends in and becomes white noise. Maybe you're a nature walk person and you like to go out and hear the birds and the leaves rustling. Maybe it's about self-talk. You know, we talk about the voices in your head and having those negotiations and conversations. You need to do those things to get there. Play a game of solitaire. Relax yourself. Listen to some music. Relax yourself. Yoga, scented candles. The list goes on and on and on. And we talk about them in every episode because they're just so very, very important. So forgiving yourself starts the same way your other skills start. It's taking a deep breath. It's going for a walk. It's calming yourself down so that you can process. But what about forgiving others? Should you even have to forgive them? I mean, why do you want to see this person and you have to go talk to them because they're the ones who did it and they're the ones who hurt you and it's just not fair and they stop. Nobody said you have to tell them you forgave them. You don't have to go see that person and say, I forgive you. You don't owe them that. You don't owe them a relationship beyond today. You don't owe them any of it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That doesn't mean you won't do it. It doesn't mean it isn't helpful to do it. You can next level your forgiveness by forgiving that person and letting them process that. Because then they may come back to you and you can build a much healthier, stronger relationship. But just because that's on the table as a possibility doesn't mean it's a requirement. Because one of the hardest parts of forgiveness is dealing with the person that you're trying to forgive. And it's even worse if that person hasn't reached a place yet where they're even able to accept responsibility. Where they're not only not going to apologize to you back, but they engage in gaslighting. It happens all the time. You finally get to a place where you've processed, and the jerk is at a place where they're just going to rub salt in it. So how do you forgive in the absence of accountability? When there is no remorse, when there is no justice? I mean, this is a deeply complex personal question. And again, that's not a simple answer. I can't just snap my fingers and say, well, duh, you have to do this and every time it'll work. No. Because if every time it worked, we just go do that and get rid of the jerks. So it starts with you. So just like forgiving yourself started with you because it was you, forgiving the other person starts with you. You have to reiterate to yourself that forgiveness is primarily for you. It's for the forgiver's benefit. Yes, it will benefit other people to be forgiven, but that's not where your mental health and wellness is critically attached. It is critically attached to your ability to do it for yourself. You can get a little extra credit when you make other people feel better. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Good, positive social relationships help build good, positive social well-being, which helps build good, positive mental well-being. But it's for your benefit because you know that when you hold on to all of that resentment, it robs you of your peace and joy. It's more rocks in your backpack, just weighing you down. It's a burden. Resentment is a heavy, heavy burden that has mental and physical repercussions. So as you forgive this other person for being the person that they are, you start to feel better as you release that burden. And it gives you personal power. It gives you personal power because you can't go back and stop what they did. You can't change what they did. But by emphasizing forgiveness, you emphasize your personal choice and your personal freedom. And now your well-being is independent from the actions that you're forgiving. They're now independent from the person who committed those atrocities. Because you've forgiven them, you've removed yourself from the equation and you can move along. And if they want to stay stuck in the negativity of what they did, if they want to refuse to acknowledge what they did, if they want to refuse to grow as human beings, that's now on them because you've done what you have to do to take care of you. So you need to get started. You need to get started as quickly as you possibly can after you've taken your breath, after you've taken your walk, as part of the process of doing those things. You need to acknowledge and you need to validate your feelings because they're real. And you have to accept that. And you can't judge yourself for it. I know. I already told you, you're going to judge yourself for it. You are. But you need to put that judgment aside. And you need to create a safe space for your emotions. Because once you do that, once you get past that initial gut reaction of negativity and you step into your safe space, you can shift your perspective. And you can start to get more insight into the motivations. It doesn't excuse what they did. Again, the reasons don't excuse the action. They don't excuse the behavior. They don't excuse the hurt. But as you start to understand their motivations, as you start to understand their reasons, you can be more compassionate. You can have a sense of empathy, even for the people who hurt you, especially for the people who hurt you. I mean, isn't that what empathy is all about? It's coming to an understanding, this happened, and maybe it happened because of something bad that happened to them. Maybe it happened because they're just having a bad day. Maybe it happened because they're a jerk, but at least now I get it. I understand it. And I can process it. And when you process it, you can look at ways to let it go. We talked about the backpack. That's the metaphor I love to use, that you have the backpack on and they're just piling the negativity rocks in the back of it, and it's weighing you down and weighing you down and weighing you down. But when you're letting go, it's like taking those rocks out. If you just kind of close your eyes and give me one good breath in through your nose, long and slow, filling your entire body cavity, feeling your stomach expand as the oxygen presses into your bloodstream and moves through your body. And then you release it slowly out of your mouth, just exhaling all of that negativity out, slowly out. And as you're blowing it out, it's filling up balloons. And those balloons are tied to the rocks in your backpack. And they're just pulling all of that negativity out. They're just carrying those rocks out of your backpack and freeing you from the burden as you let those things go. That's not to say they didn't happen. Those rocks are real. That's not to say they aren't important. Those rocks are critical. That's not to say they didn't hurt you, because they did. But once they're strapped to that balloon and you're exhaling them away and they're going up, you're free from the burden that they represent. And it's not that easy. I understand it's not that easy. It is a process that takes time. It takes effort. It takes an active participant to forgive themselves and to forgive others and to find ways to let go. I'm telling you right now, forgive yourself for being bad at letting it go. Because it takes small steps to get there. And you've got to be patient with yourself, because letting it go is really, really hard. So whether you practice throwing the rocks, whether you practice shoveling out the hate, whether you practice meditation, understand that in the process, you've got to have to be patient, because there's nothing harder than forgiveness. Because it requires you to be doing something that is counter to what all the voices are telling you. That is taking all of that hurt, all of that very real pain, and channeling it forward and releasing it and acknowledging that within forgiveness is grace. And that is going to release you from the negativity, and it's going to improve your outlook. It's going to improve your sensibility. It's going to improve you. So as we go on this journey, understand that when it comes to forgiveness, like all your mental strength skills, your performances are going to go up and down. Some days you're going to have good days. Some days you're going to have bad days. There are challenges. That's normal. There are setbacks. Of course there are. And as you go through the process of learning to forgive and release and let go, and you have those challenges and you have those setbacks, those are opportunities to learn. Those are opportunities to grow. And hey, there are opportunities to forgive yourself for having the setback in the first place. So persevere. Don't give up on me. Understand that each journey starts with a step. And it's that next step that matters the most. You'll get to your destination if you keep taking steps. But if you only look at the destination and you're stuck where you are, you're never going to get there. And sometimes you're going to have to sidestep an obstacle. Sometimes you're going to have to backpedal and head another direction and circle around. But you need to celebrate those small victories, because when you do finally get past that roadblock, that's worth acknowledging. You may not have ended the journey. You may not have gotten to the golden place. You may not have actually forgiven the dude yet. But if you've gone ahead and acknowledged some of the reasons behind the act, and you started to understand them, you started to process them, that's huge. Because those things hurt to process. And you need to acknowledge that they hurt. Acknowledge that it's really important that you started to process them. And then, hey, you know what? Good job. Give yourself a hug. And whether you journal or whether you podcast or whether you talk to a friend or whether you meditate, it's important to reflect on this journey as you go through it. Don't ignore it. Don't shove it to the bottom of the bag. It's part of who you are. It's part of the growth that you're getting. Forgiveness is a gift. It is. It's a gift you give yourself. whether you're forgiving somebody else or you're forgiving yourself, the gift is really to you. Because ultimately, this is about self-care. This is about self-liberation. Look at forgiveness as an act of self-love. And if you need some additional help, don't be afraid to go get help. There are therapists, there are counselors, there are friends, and there are family that are happy to help you process these difficult emotions and experiences. Find the help you need. Shoot me a note. Make a comment. Talk to a professional. Talk to your best bud. But don't let the burden drag you down. Love yourself. Forgive yourself. Seek help where you can. I'm Coach Eric. I am really, really thankful that you joined me on this journey of forgiveness. I get choked up during the last 2 episodes here just talking about it because it's such a difficult thing for everybody to process. So, take care of yourself. Relax a little bit. Prioritize your own self-care and your own mental well-being. And while you're at it, enjoy a little music. The song we have for today is a visualization song. This one goes back to an athlete again. And it's pretty straightforward. It's called I'm Good. Enjoy. When you get a chance, like us, share us, tell all your friends about us. This is Sane Enough. I'm Coach Eric.
Woke up this morning, feeling good. Perfect hair, no hat, no hood. Got my lucky socks on, my favorite shoes. Vibing so hard, ain't nothing to lose.
Can't lose.
I'm floating on air, feeling so right. Got that inner sunshine, burning so bright. You can spin your tails, you can play your game, but I'm over here smiling, feeling no shame. Yeah, talk your talk, yeah, strut your stuff, yeah, deep down, buddy. You've had enough. See you over there with your chest puffed out, telling everyone what you're all about. Got your fancy watch and your designer threads, but your smile's a little tight, something unsaid. I'm floating on air, feeling so right. Got that inner sunshine, burning so bright. You can spin your tails, you can play your game. I'm over here smiling, feeling no shame. Yeah, talk your talk, yeah, strut your stuff, yeah, deep down, buddy. You've had enough. It's okay, man, I understand. You wanna be me, part of the plan. My effortless walk, my laid-back vibe, it's contagious, I can't even hide. Even if I tried, don't need to brag, don't need to boast. Just living my life coast to coast. Got my own rhythm, my own sweet groove. And you tap in your foot, can't help but move. Don't look down, don't look now. It's okay, just one of the crowd. You're just another one now. I'm floating on air, feeling so right. Got that inner sunshine, burning so bright. You can spin your tails, you can play your game, but I'm over here smiling, feeling no shame. Yeah, talk your talk, yeah, strut your stuff, yeah, deep down, buddy. You've had enough. So go ahead. So go ahead. Try to imitate my effortless swagger.